Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Jared the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace coming to you from Podcast at Ground Zero, home of the apocalypse. Tonight is episode 33, Sticks and Stones. Joining us tonight is the usual fanfare of Adam Bomb Glancy, our stalwart co-host and special guest host this week is Michael Vorhola from Skirmisher Publishing. We've all seen Mike before, and Mike's usually got something good to say, so we decided to bring him back on and give him one more chance.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
We are glad to have you. So tonight, Sticks and Stones. So we are going to be talking about weapons and armor in the apocalypse. We're going to be talking about real life stuff, plausible scenarios of weapons before, during, or more during, after, long after the apocalypse. A lot of it will depend on what ended the world. We're also going to talk about maybe some of our favorite real life potential apocalypse weapons, and of course anything that is our favorite apocalypse weapon from fiction. Books, games, role-playing games, video games, something that you think is a really kick-ass freaking post-apocalyptic weapon, we're gonna mention it on the show. So
no matter how stupid it actually is.
Oh, there's no stupid weapons, only stupid people, Scott.
Only weapons that are used in stupid ways.
Exactly. So, all right. So in the news, couple of little things here and there. One thing I wanted to mention is I'm still watching Z Nation, so it has kept my interest long enough that I'm still watching after 5 episodes. Okay.
Yeah.
And like I said, the last ship, I couldn't make it after the second. I was like, I can't watch this anymore. And again, folks, remind you, Z Nation is by Sci-Fi Channel. It's your typical standard fare Sci-Fi Channel cheesy campy shit. And this last episode really showed that, because if you didn't know, it was brought to you by the same people who brought you Sharknado and Sharknado 2. So would you think that they would have done something with a tornado with the zombies? If you thought they did, you're right, because they did.
Yeah, please. Testify, Brother Wallace, testify.
Oh, they brought a zombnado, whatever you want to call it. So, because they were in the Midwest, big-ass tornadoes ripping through the countryside, and would you believe it? You saw all kinds of bodies flying around in the tornado, and zombies were being thrown. They went there with the zombie tornado.
No spoiler alerts necessary for this.
No, because it's in the previews on the channel. So there's
that's parts of it are right up front anyway.
Exactly. So so they went there, and I got to give them credit for doing that. But the show, I got to give it credit because it's done a couple little things here and there that are not bad, and they came out with they've done a couple of things in the zombie setting. They got it out there before other people have done it. So before like a bigger, better show like The Walking Dead had a chance to play that gag. They've done that.
Had some interesting shticks on that show. I will give them that. They've done some things that I haven't seen other places. The flying zombie baby, you know what? They could have just left that alone, because zombie babies don't get the power to fly, whereas normal babies don't have that power.
Oh, no, that's where you're mistaken, Mike. I believe normal babies can fly.
Okay.
Why you have to keep those nets, with the fish hooks in them up over your windows.
Right.
Just saying. All right.
But they have done. You're right, Jared. They have done some things on the show that show that they're going beyond, say, a normal sci-fi original Saturday night movie in terms of their creativity.
Exactly. So they're not doing a bad job, and then, like I said, The Walking Dead, the season premiere. Like I said, that show's kind of hit or miss. Like, it gets kind of very dull at times. But this episode, they came out of the gate pretty strong for the premiere episode, so they did a good job with that. They played the gag they played is exactly what I predicted it would be. Again, I won't talk about it because it just came on. I'll give people at least a week to watch it. So
yeah, so they can suffer.
They can suffer. So they pulled the gag exactly what I thought it was going to be. So, but it's pretty obvious what it was. So, but again, it was pretty good. So that's pretty good. And a couple things I had mentioned before. I backed the Metamorphosis Alpha Kickstarter by Goodman Games, and they started sending the books are on the way from China, and they started sending out some of the swag that was coming for it. Like they had a bunch of Metamorphosis Alpha dice. They got like little radiation symbols on it and stuff like that. They have these bracelets. There's different color bracelets that they came out with, because in the game, bracelets are the ID cards on the ship, and there's different colors for different levels, and they made a bunch of them at different ones. They're randomly giving them to people. And then some of the people like James Ward, who created the game, said that, yeah, if anybody plays the Metamorphosis Alpha campaign, a game with me DMing it, if you have a bracelet, you could wear it and it'll work for your character.
Of course, that's the way to do it.
Which is pretty cool, And they had like a little, they made like a little Metamorphosis Alpha, little lapel pin. So I mean, they got some neat swag coming. And the only other thing I got is I got a couple of post-apocalyptic books in from Amazon. One of them I've already read. I read it as an ebook, but I wanted to get the paperback version of it. Was the Andrea Nord book, No Night Without Stars. That was in my top 5 when we did the top 5 show. So I wanted to get like a hard copy of it. Love this book. And then I got another book called Phoenix Without Ashes. It's a book by Harlan Ellison. What this book is, we've mentioned the TV show in the past called The Star Lost, which is basically Metamorphosis Alpha, the show. It's, this generation ship, everything crapped out. Now, there was a lot of problems with the show. Harlan Ellison, started using his alternative name for the credits because he didn't want to be associated with it, because they kind of just, the production values were supposed to be high and the writing was better, but it all just went to shit. So he didn't want to be associated with it. But he wrote the original screenplay for the beginning episode. So what he did was he took that and converted it. He tried to change it into a novel for the beginning of the series. So his first episodes, he turned into a book and published it. He won like a bunch of. He won an award for it. I think he won. I can't remember what he won for it, but he won a book for it. So I wanted to get this to read what his vision of it was supposed to be, as opposed to what they had on the television. So I got that, and I'll get. It's not a very big book. I'll get that read, and I'll talk about it. And also we got another email from another publisher who has a post-apocalyptic book, and asked, "Hey, would you like me to send you some review copies of the novel, and I could even get the author to come on the show for an interview?" So I'm going to reply back to him and say, "Sure, send it on, and we'll read the book, and we'll review it." So apparently there are people listening to this show and like the show. If we've had 2 people publishers want to send us books for review, so we must be doing something right.
Clearly.
Clearly.
Yeah. We're going to have to get through Sylvia's collection first, Fractured.
Absolutely, yes.
Now that I've put away my Charles Stross novel, we can get on. I can move on to Fractured. With the what was the first short story in it? Something like No Man is an Isthmus.
I'll tell you in a second.
No Man is
a promontory. Again, I can't read my own language. Was it
promontory?
Promontory. Thank you.
No Man is a promontory. So that'll be our first story.
See, this is why I'm not a writer. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that didn't say peninsula. Who knows what you would have come up with, Jared?
What?
All right. So.
Anything you came across, Scott? Because I had a bunch of shit.
I got a ton of crap. So why don't we move on to Will? You got any?
Will.
No. We like Will Thrasher better. So I meant to say Michael. Sorry, Michael.
Wah, wah.
We're talking about recently published post-apocalyptic materials. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, what's on the horizon?
Well, you know what? What I end up reading a couple issues of a week is Wisdom from the Wastelands, which is a source book that Skirmisher Publishing publishes. It's a mini source book, 5 pages of crunch for the Mutant Future game, which is a retro clone of first edition Gamma World, so it's compatible with Gamma World or Mutant Future or any kind of basic system game. And I publish 2 issues of that every month, one every 2 weeks. So that's what I end up reading. I read post-apocalyptic weapons and monsters and radiation effects and that sort of thing, written up by Chris Van Deelen and Derek Holland, my 2 authors for that. So it's really post-apocalyptic gaming stuff that I end up reading the most of on a regular basis. And that's all available on DriveThruRPG. And they're only 99 cents an issue. So anyone who wants to check out any of those, just look for Wisdom from the Wastelands. We just came out with issue 44. So we got plenty of them up there.
99 cents an issue? That's outrageous.
That's a steal. Skirmisher Publishing is insane.
I'm just saying.
All right. But
we cover weapons a lot. We cover weapons and armor in the post-apocalypse. That's something that Chris Van Deelen in particular really enjoys.
So we brought you at the right time.
You brought me just at the right time. Anytime's the right time. I can always talk about weapons.
So there I was at the Zompire Film Festival in Portland, Oregon this weekend, and there was some apocalypses. I mean, there was a lot of non-apocalypse vampire and zombie films at the festival, but zombies have gotten married into the apocalyptic material. So there are a number of short films and a couple of there's a lot of short films at the festival this year, and there were 2 features of the short films. There was a short film called Buddy System, which was pretty much a how-to guide, how to use your Alamo gun, Jared. Yes, that was pretty good. There was a 13-minute film called Human Wreckage, where our 2 survivors are very concerned about whether or not the person they've rescued has been bitten or shows any sign of infection. Because, if something's infected, well, you wouldn't want to get an infection from it when you eat it. There was a really funny one out of a zombie apocalypse called Say What out of Canada. And you could tell it was Canadian because it was incredibly polite. It was like the most polite zombie. Nice, Jared. The most polite zombie apocalypse imaginable. Let's see. There was like a Argentinian one. No. Spanish one called The Chosen, which was some special forces guys at the end of their rope trying to find the scientist that's going to help fix the problem. That doesn't work out so hot. Waterborne was a Australian one that featured zombie kangaroos. There was one out of England called Zero that was kind of interesting insofar it was all about being a total dick. It was all about shit like gutting your buddy and leaving him behind to slow down the zombies, or cutting a fella's hamstring so you can be sure to run faster than him. And by the end of it, the sort of commentary was even the zombies, which are more like the infected than zombies, they turn on their own wounded and tear them to pieces until eventually, the basic premise is you can't tell the humans from the zombies. We survived together by emulating each other's behaviors until you couldn't tell who was who.
And of course, they've gone that direction. That's sort of a zeitgeist thing. They've gone that direction on The Walking Dead. Over the past season. That's the direction they've headed. That human and zombie are really converging in a sense in terms of their behavior.
Having previously diverged, so this idea that, oh, you can't tell them from us, and my thought is, no, you really can't. In fact, one of the best bits in Zero was where, having fucked over all his buddies to get away, he sees a campfire in the distance, and, oh, thank God, people, oh, I've been looking for another group, I was separated, and it's a campfire, but it's a campfire full of people who've been overrun, and he gets there just in time to be surrounded by zombies. It's like, wah, wah, sad trombone. There was one film that was sort of off the beaten path called The Stomach, which is a really creepy take on spiritualism and ectoplasm, and that one was really worth a look.
Now, is there any way people can see these? I mean, if they aren't going to this festival that you went to? I mean, this is all very enticing, but it falls.
I suggest you go find yourself some Vimeo. You find some Vimeo, some YouTube. Some of the stuff is out there. The one that I really wanted to throw out that's the feature film I'm going to mention hasn't come out yet, but it's going to. It's really good. But of the short films, there was one from Spain called The Only Man, about a guy who has been bitten by the zombies and isn't quite gone yet, and is desperately trying. The dead won't attack him anymore, but he can still talk and he can still reason, and he's got all he's got these nerve tremors, like he's got Creutzfeldt-Jakob or Kuru or something, and he's trying to keep the zombies at bay because I'm not like you. That one was very good. But Chrysalis, made in the States, 99 minutes, directed by a guy named John Klein. Chrysalis was awesome. It was 25 years after Z-Day. All the characters are second-generation survivors. So they don't know the world at all before it went to shit. It is not, how do I put this, SCA porn, but everybody's got melee weapons because we're just out of bullets. We're just out of ammo, so it's sledgehammers and ball peen and things like that. The zombies are more like the infected than zombies, and one of the points is they're running out of zombies. The world has gotten empty because the infected need to survive too, and they're not making it either. It was shot in places like Gary, Indiana, and in Cairo, Illinois, two of the most post-apocalyptic landscapes.
Urban wastelands.
And they shot it in miserable cold environment. I mean, their breath looks like that scene where McReady and the other two guys are standing around the basement of the outpost in The Thing, talking about, we're not going to get out of here after that whole "it's gone, McReady." Well, we're not going to get out of here, but we got to make sure that thing doesn't either. And that breath is just rolling out of them in clouds. That's what this movie looked like every step of the way. And since it was low budget, it's not CGI. They just filmed this movie under miserable circumstances in an environment that looked like it was made out of tetanus and lockjaw from top to bottom.
Have you got zombies going by with shopping carts in the background, that sort of thing?
No, I did not see. Yeah, there was not the guy and his kid going by in the background with the shopping cart and the one wheel that won't go straight. But it looked like that. They made their actors look miserable all the way through. And it was a good. It had the survival horror thing we're looking for, and it had some siege, and it had some room-by-room, nail-biting exploration, and the guys who made it were not afraid of the dark. I don't know how you guys feel about nighttime scenes, but my attitude is it should be fucking dark. They would light scenes just with the light sources that the characters had, so it is black.
Kind of like in Blair Witch, like a lot of those things were just what they had,
Yeah.
So they could still frame a shot with the light from the flashlights and the lanterns because they weren't doing found footage, but it is absolutely blackout, and it just adds to this oppressive, claustrophobic feel where you can't see the problem coming. until it's right up in your grill. So Chrysalis is one to look for. I think that it's going to get a release. It's a $1 million movie, maybe the high 100,000s. Only 4 speaking characters, a few, maybe a dozen or so infected, maybe more, a little animal wrangling, and mostly brilliant location scouts. The guys who found the place to film this did a great job. One of my favorite bits was going through the building, and there's all this water that's leaking into the rooms in these old abandoned buildings, and in the winter it is formed stalactites and stalagmites inside the buildings.
That's pretty cool.
So it was amazing. So there you go.
Cool.
Keep an eye out for Chrysalis.
Chrysalis. Cool. All right. Well, since that's kind of like where we're going, you're saying they're all sledgehammers and rebar.
Yeah.
Let's get onto the subject: weapons and armor. So, what are we going to kill things with the apocalypse? It's like, well, again, like I said, it depends on what is our apocalypse. Are we talking, the fantasy world of, oh, it's going to be a zombie apocalypse, or more realistically, it's going to be some kind of bad infection kind of apocalypse. Or
I'm voting for something between ecological collapse and peak oil.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, but it's like, because I think also a lot of what your apocalypse is will determine a little bit of what weapons and armor are going to be around. Because is it a extinction level event, population killer type of virus that kills everybody off, and there's just not a lot of people left, and then there's going to be tons of shit laying around? Is it going to be a zombie apocalypse where it's like, yeah, we got guns because there's a lot of guns in America, but you're burning through fucking ammo like it was licorice, because you're just trying to get through it to kill off the zombies? Is it going to be nuclear and there's nothing left? A lot of it's going to depend on.
And if it's that crap sack future where you have your ecological bomb plus your economic collapse plus energy and high tech collapse, you're going to have a lot of starving people, and your weaponry is going to get burned through.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I watch Z Nation and even Walking Dead, and they're far enough in on both of those, especially Z Nation, where I say, have they got bullet trees that I'm not seeing? Where is all this ammunition coming from? For all this fully automatic fire. It's just ridiculous. And full automatic fire is less accurate than single shot fire anyway. So it doesn't really make any sense on any level that you'd see so much of that.
Yeah, especially because it's 3 years after. So a lot of ammunition is going to get burned up. And Mike's got a good point about the automatic fire, because if you talk to anybody who is had military experience, it's like, well, you're not firing automatic to try to hit everybody. You're just trying to get somebody's fucking head down so somebody could get to A to B, or somebody else could reload, right?
Yeah, you know what? I've fired automatic weapons in a real world combat situation, in a dirty situation, and those things jam up. When was the last time we ever saw one of these shows where a weapon jammed? When I was in Iraq, my damn M16 jammed every single time I fired it full auto. Every single swinging time. And yet you never see these things jam. And they would. 3 years in, without professional armors, with people picking this stuff up and figuring out how to use it, every weapon would jam every other episode. It would just have to.
Yeah, because firearms need to be maintained, because dirt, grime, the gunpowder residue, you got to clean that shit, and you got to know how to take it apart and clean it.
Yep. Yeah, certainly even the more modern ones. One of my favorite post-apocalyptic weapons, and one I now own, was from Timothy Truman's sort of dystopic post-apocalyptic comic Scout. And Emmanuel Santana, the Apache post-apocalyptic survivor, at some point is tromping around with his Lee Enfield bolt-action rifle.
Can't go wrong with that.
And I saw that, and I'm like, yes, please. Bolt action, I keep thinking of, let's see, who else had bolt action in the post-apocalypse? I think of Don Johnson in A Boy with His Dog had a bolt action rifle.
Yep.
And, something that's not going to jam on you would be really handy. Oh, it's really slow to reload. Yes, but...
Well, if you remember, Scott, back in the 80s, when the whole Soldier of Fortune crowd had these boy crushes on the Afghanis. That was back when we loved them. Before they were killing us, and we thought they were great. The big thing was, oh look, they're using Lee Enfield rifles against T-72 tanks. They're using these old World War I era rifles against the most powerful military in the world. Everybody thought that was the greatest thing. So yeah, that's a go-to weapon. You can't go wrong with it.
And certainly, I will point out that there was if you've ever, just on the subject of bolt action weapons versus full auto, there was a myth of Afghani marksmanship, and it's not really a myth, but there was a time when they were fighting the Brits, when they were fighting, in the 1850s and the late 1800s.
Oh, Khyber Pass episode.
Yeah. The Afghans had a reputation for being really good shots because they had muzzle loading, muskets and then later bolt action rifles, and you were fighting on mountainsides with these big open, clear, sort of fields of fire, and they had this reputation. That reputation has been reported in various, news outlets as being gone. That American soldiers have come back from these various theaters and said, well, the reason I'm here is because the Afghans can't shoot, and the Arabs can't shoot, the Iraqis can't shoot, and they can't shoot because they're holding the trigger down at full auto and missing everything and missing at close ranges. Because there's no fire discipline anymore. There's no. It's just my noisemaker makes a lot of noise.
Too much TV and movies.
Yeah. Apparently they've seen the same Rambo films that we have.
We've defeated them with our media. That's actually amazingly clever when you think about it.
So anytime when it comes to weapons, the post-apocalypse, I think, pump action shotguns, lever action rifles, bolt action rifles, revolvers. Not sexy at all revolvers is what I want. Something I'll be able to shoot 10 years down the road, when it comes to firearms.
Well, yeah, less, like I said, the bolt actions, the shot, less moving parts and less intricate parts compared to automatic weapons, big machine guns, submachine guns. They're sexy and all, but not practical for long term with minimal maintenance.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to follow the direction Scott's going, but I'm going to say, okay, let's say I will agree with Scott 100% if we're talking year one, during the collapse of everything. But I would say that if we're going into year 2 or year 3 or year 5, I'd go the direction that they very intelligently went the first couple episodes of Revolution and very stupidly abandoned from like episode 3 onward, and that's black powder weapons. You can't go wrong with black powder weapons. A properly maintained and loaded black powder weapon is just as accurate and just as deadly for one shot as really virtually any modern weapon for all practical purposes. And a black powder pistol is like hitting someone with a mule's leg. It is just a completely deadly cannon. So I'd say moving into things, being able to cast your own bullets, but not have to go so far as actually doing reloads with casings, would allow you to really stay viable with black powder 6-shot Navy revolver, one of those 1836 models, and a 50 caliber Civil War era rifle, 45 caliber Civil War era rifle. These are deadly, reliable weapons that you get a lot of long-term use out of.
There are very modern cap and ball black powder weapons out there for hunting enthusiasts.
Well, that's right.
And something like that would be, you see them at gun shows all the time. They're completely modern, made from completely, modern materials and plastics and whatnot, but they're still black powder. They're still.
You know what? I don't even need them to be completely modern. Keep in mind, the deadliest war the United States has ever fought in was the Civil War. 600,000 Americans died during the Civil War. They were plenty good. They don't need to be better. They don't need to be made out of some weenie modern alloy. Civil War era weapons were really damn powerful and deadly. When a Civil War soldier marched out onto the battlefield, he was carrying that rifle he was carrying was the most powerful weapon that had ever been carried by a single soldier up to that point in history. Nothing more powerful had ever been carried by a soldier onto the battlefield. And in the post-apocalyptic environment, it's going to be damn good, especially if you get a bayonet to go in there.
Oh, exactly, because Mike is right about the black powder, and like from Revolution, is because yeah, we're going to have ammo, and there's a shit ton of fucking ammo out there right now. There's so much ammo, but they said once we start getting into year 2, year 3, unless people are very conservative, or you have access to the, because that's another thing, skills and knowledge. Are you going to know how to hand load your weapon, hand load your bullet casings with the machinery that you found in the fucking basement at the pawn shop? You know, are you going to know how to do that? That is a key factor too, is the knowledge of how to do it. I know how to fire a gun. I know how to clean a gun. Do I know how to reload my gun, my shells? Well, I could probably figure it out. Okay, put the shell, put the powder. It's going to go in. Not the least of this,
because the knowledge is, trapped in that ancient technology called text, and it's locked away all kinds of places you can get at it. So getting to the knowledge is not too hard, but even reloading.
You got to eat and keep your head down while you're trying to access all this knowledge and make use of it too. I mean, we're assuming a sort of relaxed environment where I can pop open my manual that I found in some basement, and I have this pristine little reloading lab that some lunatic survivalist left behind.
Well, in your community, it might be somebody's job to reload to make the weapons. While somebody else is harvesting the food, and we've kind of talked about that before. But
specialization is key. If you got enough food coming in for people to specialize in skill sets for the community, you're winning.
Well, I guess it depends what kind of environment you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, if there are 25 or 50 or 100 of you, and you can specialize, and you can send, foraging teams and processing teams, if you can do all that. But on the other hand, if you're going back to Cormac McCarthy and the road, and it's just it really absolutely depends on what your situation is. So you're right. Best of all possible worlds. You're right. You'd have a fortified compound with a couple dozen people you could trust, and people would have specialized roles.
Let me also point out that when it comes to reloading, what most people are doing is buying a giant bag of percussion caps and buying a giant bag of smokeless powder. Creating gunpowder, black powder, is apparently not that difficult, but it requires a couple more steps of technology and facilities to create smokeless powder, which is more powerful than black powder.
Right.
So you can end up in situations where, oh great, we can make smokeless powder, we can make black powder. I guess I'll start reloading this 9mm Parabellum bullets to put in my automatic pistol. Now we had a guy write into us. What's his name? Colin.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Colin
Boyd.
Boyd, and he threw some stuff in here. It was very interesting about. He did experiments with black powder reloads on modern bullets. And he reloaded 9mm ammo with black powder and fired it through a Glock 17, I believe it was. And he said that he got about 30 rounds in before the residue from the black powder clogged up the weapon and it jammed.
Interesting.
But he was able to make it work before the weapon simply stopped working, which again, I say, revolver, for my answer to that. But it was interesting to try that.
And a revolver made for black powder, what's more.
Yeah. He also said that they tried using the caps from toy gun caps to create percussion caps for the reloads, and again, they were able to kludge that together. But again, the weapon malfunctioned eventually. And I asked him how long it took him to wash it. He said he put it in a dishwasher rather than trying to scrub it out. He put it in a dishwasher and then oiled it.
That's a profound statement you make, Scott. Maybe without realizing it. You said the weapon malfunctioned eventually. All weapons will malfunction eventually. Yeah. This is a certitude. all weapons, and the more moving parts they have, they will all malfunction eventually. So that isn't necessarily doesn't necessarily mean anything one way or the other. The fact that it will malfunction eventually, because that's a universality. It's a matter of how quickly it'll malfunction and how fatally it'll malfunction and how to reduce a stoppage, as we used to
30 rounds into a fight with a pistol fight's not bad, honestly, because pistol fights aren't multiple magazines unless something's gone terribly wrong with your planning.
Right.
But I thought, well, you know what? I could carry around my pistol with black powder reloads in it, and if I have to dismantle the whole gun in the downtime and clean it out, hooray! At least it worked when I needed it to.
Well, exactly. That's what I said. Guns with less moving parts, like the bolt action, the revolvers, will fare better than than the automatics and semi-automatics. Because what Colin did, and even a friend of mine who's pretty knowledgeable in firearms said, yeah, you could reload like your M16 bullets with the black powder. It'll work. They're not powerful enough to give you automatic fire. You could fire one at a time, but it's going to clog it up. So a friend of mine had told me about that a long time ago. So that's the thing. We're going to have, once the smokeless powder runs out, because it's like if we're living in this perfect world where, yay, we got reloading equipment and we've foraged as much smokeless powder as we can. We re-rolled our bullets. We were counting our shells, and now you're down to smokeless powder. Your modern firearms aren't going to work so good. So what we're going to need to find is, again, if you could find them, is the black powder guns. The Civil War era guns. Those are guns.
Are you guys familiar with a movie called Ever Since the World Ended?
Yes.
Low budget. A post-apocalyptic film.
Yes, it's the one of the MythBuster guys.
Yeah, he plays one of the guys.
I have, no.
He played one of the Adam something or other plays one of the MythBusters.
Adam Savage.
Yeah, he plays a guy in the community who's sort of the chemist or whatever, and one of his side projects is collecting black powder weapons, because there's going to be a point when we can't reload anymore, where the brass casings are going to wear out and damage to the point that they can't be reloaded. And we're going to have to start casting, sure, we're casting bullets now, but we're going to have to start casting mini balls,
Mini balls, right.
And creating black powder weapons. We're going to have to take a step back technologically, because reloading spent casings isn't producing new ammo. That's not the same thing.
Oh, exactly.
Right.
There was one of these prepper shows that I saw where these guys the guy was doing that, like learning how to cast musket balls and reload those and make those, because he said that eventually this is going to run out. So the guy was kind of thinking that far ahead, and even more less than just finding old musket rifles. It might get this down to finding where somebody gets a fucking tube, a metal tube, and puts some kind of stock on it, and just loads he can make the black powder, load in there, shove a bunch of fucking nails and ball bearings, and just make a fucking simple blunderbuss.
A blunderbuss.
Yeah, exactly.
All I can think of is Kirk shooting the Gorn in Arena with the bamboo cannon.
I bet you it'll even come down to that one point where it's just metal tubes with the hold on your shoulder, and just make your own fucking blunderbuss, and just boom. It's your improv shotgun, because that'd be the best you could do. Now, if we're down to that, then I think people are going to have to start looking for alternatives to weapons, especially
to firearms. And the kind of weapon you're describing, you don't want to haul shit around like that. I mean, this is when you're holed up in your little hooch or your lair, and you've got one of these sitting there, so you can shoot the first thing that comes through the door. That's all that's good for. And then you either have to run out the back or go onto your fire axe and your machete.
Yeah, but I got to point out that there was a style of post-apocalyptic fiction that followed the Road Warrior films, where they sort of presumed an incredibly firearm and black powder scarcity in their future, and so suddenly everybody's post-apocalypse is bladed weapons, and you get all that SCA porn from SM Sterling, I guess it is, Dies the Fire. And to get to I gotta say that if you're gonna get to those kind of SCA porn futures where it's all down to, now we have long swords because
Well, somebody's got to make the fucking longsword, dude. You need blacksmiths, and then again, that's skill and knowledge. I think it's going to be less of that and more like, yeah, we took this fucking street sign and we banged it out and put a fucking edge on it, put a handle on it. There's my fucking weapon. You know.
You know, if you want a good model for what post-apocalyptic weapons are going to look like, for what a lot of them are going to look like, go back exactly 100 years. This is the centennial of the Great War. Take a look. Just Google trench raider weapons.
Yeah.
Look at the stuff that people were using for doing trench raids. Sawed-off shotguns, baseball bats with barbed wire wrapped around the heads. I mean, these are brutal, gritty, makeshift weapons that were no nonsense. This is the kind of stuff, like what you're saying, Jared. Stuff that's made from what you've got to hand, with very specific purpose in mind. So yeah, look at World War I era trench weapons to get a real sense for what people will be trying to use.
Well, what's the simplest fucking weapon you can make? A fucking club. You could get any kind of big stick and make a fucking club out of it, you know?
Right.
And clubs, maces, hammers, those kind of things will be prevalent because they're easy to maintain and make, whereas, you know, again, it's got the SCA porn, and I agree. Like, oh, we have swords. Yeah, there's real swords out there, but there's a lot of fake shit too.
Oh, and, yeah. I want to point out that at Harper's Ferry, the reason John Brown was arrested and taken away to be put on trial is that one of the Marine officers who led the charge into the main arsenal building accidentally grabbed a parade saber rather than a real saber. And when he hit John Brown in the head, instead of cleaving him down from the top of his skull to his front teeth, it just bounced off his skull, fractured his skull, knocked him out.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah. If the guy had grabbed the right weapon, there would have been no trial, there wouldn't have been this martyrdom, and it wouldn't have been one of the things that propelled the Civil War, just because somebody grabbed the wrong sword.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to see, people. You could go to fucking any Home Depot. You're going to get axes. You're going to get sledgehammers, machetes. People can even be taking like fucking.
Kitchen stores are great places. You got cleavers and
what store, Mike?
Kitchen stores, open stores. Yeah, you get large butcher knives and cleavers and anything like that.
I thought he said ninja store.
You don't know where those are. So
the ninja stores are invisible. They're all around.
I stopped using that word in the 80s. I never use that word anymore.
It's ridiculous. We don't use we're not using the N-word. We're not using the N-word.
And the N-word, exactly. And in the post-apocalypse, in every community there will be at least one asshole who's running around in black pajamas with his ninja toe, and ideally he will die very, very, very soon on in a very bad way. And not pollute the apocalypse for everybody else.
Is he ruining He's ruining your
with his stupid little shoes with the little big toe separate on them? Yeah, absolutely. He's ruining it for everyone.
What happened to Frank? Coyote's got him.
But also.
It's going to be worth your last shotgun round. Just to look that up. It's your last one. You're looking at those two barrels, and one of them's empty, and you're thinking.
My shoulder armor is going to be made out of little rubber-soled shoes with a little separate toe on them. These are my pauldrons. This is my shoulder armor.
Well, 10K from Z Nation's got fucking shoe soles on his shoulders.
That's right. And actually, that's brilliant when you think about it. I mean, a disproportionate number of attacks from people, from people who are not necessarily trained combatants, are just going to be brought straight down on you. It's going to be a baseball bat or an axe, and they're going to swing right, and they're going to break your collarbone, and that's it. That's it. Game over. You are out of the fight. From a crude overhand attack. This is where we haven't talked about armor at all. When we talk about firearms, improvised armor is worthless once we get into firearms.
That doesn't do squat.
But in melee, what's better than a set of football pads? I mean, what is going to protect you from a disproportionate number of attacks that you would get. Man, if you can lay your hands on some shoulder pads and a football helmet, you are a step ahead for anyone you're going to be fighting hand to hand.
It's a good start on a lot of things. The only thing it's not going to do is, so much, and I don't mean to get into SCA porn, but so much armor is about just, it's sloped. It's like the armor on a T-34. Because it was sloped armor, it was more effective. It was more about turning an attack, or turning the force away, rather than just absorbing it or stopping it. So I don't know if football pads are going to provide that kind of protection, because they're not designed to turn away a machete blade, or you know what I mean.
But it'll absorb blunt trauma from, like, say, you're getting hit with a hammer or a club or something.
Yeah.
I would rather have them absorbing any given attack in a half-assed way than have my collarbone absorbing that same attack. I guess that's what I would say. I mean, sure, there's going to be a continuum here of stuff that's better or worse. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, are there things better than, say, football pads? Sure, absolutely. But will I take those in lieu of nothing? Sure.
I just had this nightmare of wearing my you got your football pads, your helmet. Somebody swings that machete, brings it straight down on your fucking shoulder pad, and the pad turns the blade into your neck. And it's like, oh, that's probably not the way the blow should have been angled, was into my meat. Oops.
We're in the category of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah. But you're right. Rather have it than not. My favorite Z-Day armor is from, Jared, what's the name of that really cool black and white low-budget zombie movie you sent me? The one shot in Georgia.
Oh, the black one? Oh, no.
Where the Alamo gun comes from.
Oh, my fucking God. Holy crap.
We're doing those guys a disservice for not remembering.
It's been so long since I've looked at it. It is shit.
Well, we'll have to owe them the apology, but one of the best things in that is when they armor up. And they're like, they're getting thick gloves, like climbing gloves.
Leather jackets.
Gloves. And I'm like, yeah, they're going to have a hard time biting through that. That leather jacket is pretty good for your Z-Day problem. Or for your rabid dog in the ruins problem, right?
The leather jacket works really well, and if you're dealing with people and you've got a heavy leather jacket and you've stitched discs of metal on the thing, then that's going to protect you from a lot of like machete slashes across the torso. I mean, this is all a lot of ancient armor was. It was just leather jackets with things stitched or stapled or somehow attached to it in some way. So yeah, a leather jacket with a breastplate made out of a stop sign. Yeah, I mean, that's going to deflect an awful lot of things. Like I said, nothing's going to deflect a bullet. And if you're fighting some huge bruiser that's got a pike and he hits you on, in the chest with, whatever armor you're wearing, it might go through it. But once again, the stuff's on a continuum. You're doing the best you can.
Oh, yeah. And to go back what Scott was saying about SCA porn and the armor, you get, again, I don't, I'll probably get slammed for it because I'm not in the SCA and I'm not practicing and fighting with swords, but I think the same thing applies here as applies to, like, you get all these people. I'm a second-degree black belt, and I could block all this stuff because you're in the fucking dojo with planned and choreographed moves, so all your stuff works perfectly. Now, yeah, there are some people out there who are really fast, can remember all this stuff, and yeah, they're going to be able to kick your ass because they do know more than you do, but not everything, because, again, they're in these unrealistic scenarios. There are some people, yeah, who are that fucking good. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of these people who think, oh, I know everything because I can do it, it doesn't survive real-world fucking interactions. Like, somebody's just fucking coming at you with a knife. He's not coming at you with the knife like you practice in the dojo, okay?
He didn't rehearse with you.
He didn't rehearse with you, so all your fucking skills ain't going to work. So I think the same fucking thing applies to all these SCA people, who say, oh, I fight with a sword and I can do this and that. Yeah, but you know what? You guys practice and move the same moves and techniques. You get some uneducated fucking rube who's just got himself a nice fucking, fucking sledgehammer coming at you, you know what? He doesn't know to attack you in a certain way, and you're like, oh my God, you're not. You know, I think the same rules are going to apply to where, yeah, some of these people might be that good to where it'll work for them, but I think a lot of them who think they know shit, they're just going to get taken down just as easily as anybody else.
You know what? You know, I see these SCA guys doing their demo fights at Gen Con. They strike those fruity little poses before they fight. I just want to fucking
Oh, you are starting to fight. You were throwing down the gauntlet. All right.
That won't get them through. That won't get them through the first fight. I mean, that's it. They'll be out at that point. You know, it'll be.
I'm going to go ahead and throw out.
It's all over.
Jared actually gave me an opening to quote from the novel by William Goldman, The Princess Bride, where there's this whole bit where Inigo Montoya, our great swordsman, keeps flashing back to his instructor, and the guy would do things like, okay, you know how to sword fight. Well, how about sword fighting on a staircase? Okay, you know how to do that. Oh, now you know how to sword fight. Now you're going to learn how to sword fight on broken terrain, on of bricks. Oh, now I'm going to turn the lights off. You know,
right.
Now I'm gonna, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's actually pretty awful. You know,
there's an author named Gilby. I forget his first name. He's a little bit obscure, but he's a guy who's like studied different martial arts and done comparisons of them. And he's kind of an asshole. When you read his work, he really comes off kind of as a dick. But he says something very interesting. If you can be an nth degree black belt with an unarmed martial arts style that involves a lot of high kicks, or you can be pretty good with a style that uses a short stick, be pretty good with the style that uses a short stick.
Yeah, the idea that it's going to work out the way it did in the dojo or in the gymnasium. Yeah, I get how that could be that may not come out the way we hoped, or like on the gun range. Oh wow, I can hit the target from 100 yards away. I'm an American sniper. What was the thing? Getting shot at sure can rattle a fella.
Right.
Yeah.
You know. I have no illusions about how I'm going to react under fire. I presume there'll be much freezing, too much thinking about it, and probably.
Well, the only people who might fare a little better are the people who maybe do the tactical stuff, because at least they're in different situations, not just like, okay, I'm standing still and I could hit a standing still target. Whereas people moving through houses, obstacles, they're going to be a little better off.
Yeah. Plus, anybody who's ever been shot at in anger, because again, there's that whole thing that having violence directed at a feller sure can rattle them. One other thing I want to drop in here, just because Mr. Boyd was kind enough to share some of this stuff with us, was he threw out some kludge weapons, which I thought were interesting, which were weapons that were made out of the scraps of other weapons. One of the most, he had some rifles that he showed off, and I'm going to see if I can make this work with our screen share. And I'm going to throw this up and see if anyone can. Hopefully, you guys can see it. Are you guys seeing that weapon there?
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Yeah. Is
that an M1 carbine stock?
No, it is not. That is an SKS. That is a Russian SKS. He said that the guy who made them picked up 3 of them that were on sale because they'd been in a fire. Okay, they were junk weapons, and the armorer picked it up. He added a front sight from, I believe, a Czechoslovakian version of an AK at the front end on it, and that barrel is a .45 caliber ACP barrel, and the magazine that's been built into it is actually from a grease gun, from an M3 grease gun.
Yeah.
So it went from being a rifle to sort of a pistol carbine, firing firing
45 ACP.
But yet again, first world problems. they're in a situation of, we have time to play around with these things and machine stuff. Again, in the apocalypse, you might not have the leisure time and luxury to cobble together these things. You have to kind of cobble these things together beforehand.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And this guy has, fortunately for him.
The thing is, he just took a weapon that fires a foreign rifle round, and now it fires a domestic pistol round. Maybe that's going to be easier to get, but its big problem is, of course, just the problem of reload.
Oh yeah.
That's the big problem. He also threw out some stuff where guys had taken old Sten guns and turned them into pistols and things, and turned them into to firing different kinds of ammo. To super cheap-ass, tiny number of parts, only one machined part of the whole weapon, which I think is the bolt. And, it was a weapon that just got pooped out in vast numbers in World War II. And some of these Sten variants that were created, like, let's see here, he made this, or other guys made this very interesting pistol. And I wanted to point out the pistol, Jared, because what post-apocalyptic weapon does that remind you of?
The ratchet gun from Metro 2033.
Exactly.
And that's a cut down Sten gun, isn't it?
Yeah,
He's
with a pistol grip.
He's cut down the barrel.
But with a pistol grip added.
It's a Sten pistol.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool.
What's not to like?
Yeah, I thought that was really cool as far as like taking weapons and repurposing them. And again, it reminded me of the Metro 2033 weapon. So I had to throw that out for Jared's benefit. But some of you see this stuff out of Libya and Syria, people making weapons out of sewer pipe. You know what I mean? Anything that they can get their hands on. That's always very fascinating to me, is the ability to turn at making zip guns out of nothing. In fact, in Mexico, some of these self-defense militias that have shown up because the cops, they don't have the access to legal weapons the way we do, which means that the only people that have weapons are the cops and the drug cartels. And you got these Mexican peasants who are making guns out of junk, and then using them to steal the cops and the cartels' guns from them. But they started off with just zip guns, just zip shotguns and zip rifles, and made out of pipe and carved pieces of wood, and holy crap, they found a way to make it work.
There's also, speaking of revolvers, again, if this is something you could get your hands on before the apocalypse to have as your weapon, a good weapon, I've seen it before. There's a revolver called Medusa Model 47. It has the ability to fire like up to 25 different cartridges.
Wow.
38.
One to have, wouldn't it?
Anything from the 38 caliber range, 9mm, 357, even 40 caliber rounds could fit into this one because it's got some kind of unique cylinder system where it could fit these different rounds in there. So that's kind of a cool idea.
It's a revolver?
It's a revolver, yeah. So that's something you could use to, it's like, well, whatever I could get my hands on, because, 9mm is pretty common, 38, so whatever you can get your hands on. So that's a revolver that might serve you well because, again, as ammo gets scarcer during the apocalypse. I'm just trying to adjust my camera.
Wasn't that what happened in the road where they found that bunker, and they're like, whoopee, we found a bunker full of food, and they find all this 45 ACP ammo, and he's got a 38 revolver.
Exactly.
I didn't remember about the. I just remember the bunker with the food. I didn't remember anything about the ammo.
I don't think they showed it in the movie, but in the book it was just like, shit.
Yeah.
Problem not solved. What are you gonna do? Trade ammo to a guy who's then gonna use the ammo to shoot you?
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly. I love my Lee Enfield. I love the fact that it comes with a big, heavy brass buttstock, and now I have a bayonet for it. So, worst case scenario, it can become an expensive spear and club.
Oh yeah, cool. Spears. Yeah, again, go to the kitchen store, get a fucking pole, and lash it to it. Yay, you got yourself a spear. If we need to go that primitive. Now, another thing I was mentioning to Scott earlier today, because it was actually from a book I was reading, The Earth Abides. Now,
I've got a copy of that laying around here somewhere.
So it got to the point where it was only 2 or 3 generations in, and just the way they got to that point was kind of like, apparently nobody knew anything, or everybody was dumb, and the one guy was the smart guy.
Savage.
Yeah, and he didn't, nobody taught anybody anything, and all the kids forgot everything immediately because nobody would want to learn, and nobody got taught. It's kind of stupid, but he knew that, eventually the bullets would run out and the reload. Mind you, the book was written like late 40s, or came out like in 51. So what happened was several generations, like 2 or 3 generations in, like 30, 40, 50 years, like he predicted, people were starting to use bows and arrows more. Because like it started off with them teaching the kids as a game, and eventually it passed on, so they use bows and arrows. And the kids were talking about, they're like, because he's like, well, what are these arrowheads made of? He's like, oh, we find the round, the round metal around. And he's talking about it, and this one does this and this one does that. They're talking about fucking loose change.
Coins.
They're taking quarters and nickels and pennies, and they're pounding them down and making arrowheads out of the loose change, which there has got to be infinity bazillion fucking coins laying around this country, potential arrowheads waiting, because eventually, the fancy bows, the fancy arrows are going to run out. You have to start making your own. So I thought that was kind of a cool idea that they're just taking, there's loose change everywhere.
The metal divot.
Yeah.
Well, remember in The Road, going back to The Road, our protagonist gets shot in the leg with an arrow near the end of the book, and Cormac McCarthy says the arrow was made out of a spoon.
I forgot that.
It was.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Now, that's only 5 years in. And it really struck me, okay, are people really going to be forging arrowheads out of spoons 5 years in? Probably not. I think he sort of jumped the gun on that just a little bit.
No, that book took place, that was longer than 5 years. That kid was like almost 10. So
yeah. I think it was closer to
was it further on than that? Okay.
But still 10 years. Maybe.
The description I remember of the guy who picks up the kid at the end is that he's got these shotgun shells that the ends are sealed with melted wax.
Right.
Yes.
He's this completely grizzled-looking post-apocalyptic ruins fighter. Yeah.
Yeah. The guy who picks up. I
think there's something to be said for having one of the top 3 best American authors doing post-apocalyptic fiction. Seriously. I enjoy that book. That is possibly one of my favorite post-apocalyptic books, in part just because it's so well written.
Oh yeah, that's a very, very good book. I even think the movie was very good too.
Mm-hmm.
Most when it comes to weapons in the post-apocalyptic world, so much post-apocalypse came through men's adventure fiction. We've got a lot of gun porn out there.
Oh yeah.
Again, what are our what does Michael Rourke, the survivalist, carry there, Mr.
John Thomas Rourke.
John Thomas
Rourke carries around a twin pair of Daytonics 45s with the Pacmar grips. Okay.
That's right. With the extended slide, hardballers, whatever the fuck that is, and you get that mantra. You learned more about his guns than you did about his kids in that series.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And in real life, he's gonna be carrying around the non-matching twins of the chopped off baseball bat with the nail through it and the claw hammer. This is what he's gonna be carrying. These 2 fraternal twins. One
with Pacmar grips.
Yeah.
grips.
Did you guys see the? Do you see the guys see the Key and Peele skit that ended with the guy coming to beat his friend with the baseball bat with nails in it, and he comes having become angry about some misunderstood text, and the guy runs up with the baseball bat. And he's like, "Oh, dude, what do you?" He's like, I brought you a baseball bat with nails in it," and he goes, "For my post-apocalyptic Jackie Robinson costume? How did you know?" I'm thinking, yeah, I think I want a post-apocalyptic Jackie Robinson costume. Although I think I'm gonna have to.
I think so.
I think I'm gonna have to go with Babe Ruth. Yeah, you point at the stands where the head's gonna land.
The baseball Furies.
So I think we've covered a lot of what we think is the degradation of firearms, and a lot of it's just going to be improvisation. We're going to be pounding our quarters to make arrowheads and stuff like that. Armor's going to be improvised, whether it's.
I think that we're going to go back to a steam age. We're going to get dropped back into the 1850s, and it's going to be a lot of black powder. A lot of black powder. Those are the guys who are going to rule the world, who can keep the black powder flowing.
Exactly. So again, improvised armor, whether it's football pads, leather jackets, buckskins, thick leather, whatever whatever's going to be around. We didn't hit armor too much because it's again, if you got unless you got somebody's a blacksmith, you're not making metal. You're not making metal.
But armor is going to be important, not so much for this road warrior nonsense, but for I didn't get stabbed on the rusty piece of rebar because I was wearing a padded leather jacket, so I don't get tetanus and I don't die.
Oh yeah.
I think that
a lot of armor that people wore on their torso has been quilted types of armor anyway. So basically, anything that you can put together in layers and maybe put something more resilient or rigid in between. I mean, that's what lamellar armor was. It was layers of cloth that had sheets of metal. So if you can take a basic sturdy thing like a jacket. And then sew pieces of metal in over the torso, and then put another jacket over it to keep the metal protected and the threads on it from getting cut. You've got actually a pretty good, effective piece of armor.
Yeah, like on your back, you can get one of those. Like you get yourself a nice little fucking bacon tray, where you make your cookies and put it in the back, and then you got your back protection.
Yeah. And don't forget shields. I mean, a shield is an active defense system. Shield is actually a really, really good defensive implement.
And we're talking about, because if we're talking post-apocalypse, what if the rabid dog comes at you? I mean, that's since we're going to be all out of rabies vaccine, you're going to want to have some fucking armor when it comes to the animals that are no longer going to be afraid of us, because maybe
dogs, wolves, all those panthers that have been released from the zoo and are breeding, bears.
Wasn't there a lion wandering around New York in 12 Monkeys?
There was a bear, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so armor is going to be again what you make of it. But, I mean, there'll be some things around like. We talked about, some that's useless against bullets, but, you're going to find some of your, depending on the apocalypse, you might be able to break into your frickin', local police stations and get your ballistic armor or the gun shops, and you're going to get that. But again, how long is the stuff going to last?
I tell you what I want those fucking knee pads and elbow pads that everybody in the military wears now, with your crawling along over broken rocks as fast as they can to get out of the way of trouble. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna want, because otherwise
you can get that kind of shit at Home Depot, for when people are on your knees for doing a lot of work. Yeah, get those fucking knee pads.
I think that shit's gonna be critical, especially for an old man with bad knees like me. I don't want to have to see the white bones of my knees sticking out because I had to crawl over broken glass.
But you're right. You're right. Anything that'll protect your knees or your elbows.
Shin guards, simple shin guards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And boots. Fortunately, open-toe shoes will go the way of the dodo in the
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Aren't you wearing open-toe shoes right now, Mike?
You caught me.
Hold him up. He's got the ninja shoes with the extra thumb toes.
This is all I ever wear.
I'm so glad we saw the bottom of Mike's shoe.
That's a first on podcast at Ground Zero. But bottom of Mike's shoe. So now that we've covered a lot of real world possible situations, let's as we start to wind down, let's talk about some of our favorite post-apocalyptic weapons. It could be something real, or it could be from fiction, movies, games. What do you like? What floats your boat when it comes to favorite apocalyptic weapons and armor? In the fantasy realm.
Strangely, some of my favorite weapons from the Fallout games were things like the bolt-action sniper rifle. There's that hunting rifle you can pick up that you can mod up with a sight. You can get a extra magazine, a nicer bolt, and I played through most of the game just with that because I'm the bastard who likes to shoot guys from 1,000 yards away when they don't even see where the bullets are coming from. Thank you very much. Jared likes to wade in with a flamethrower and just see the whites of their eyes when he lights them up. But I don't. Yeah. I prefer it to be a big surprise when their head disintegrates. So I loved all that stuff. But some of the weapons from Fallout were hilarious. What was the one from Fallout 3 that was the vacuum cleaner in reverse that you could put all kinds of crap into? And it would fire any junk in the game.
Oh yeah. I can't quite remember.
The steam powered railroad spike rifle.
Yeah. That
was another one that was just absolutely hilarious. But I liked the crappy Russian Sten gun from Metro 2033.
Oh yeah, that ratchet gun, real simple make. They can manufacture it,
And you could see the stick mag going through it. The magazine went from one side of the weapon to the other, and you could visually check your mag, see how many rounds were left. I thought that was a nice touch, very useful for Joe Average grunt to be able to look down and see how much ammo he's got.
Yeah, that's up there in some of my favorites. One of my favorite, again, fantasy post-apocalyptic weapons is I'm gonna go back to Gamma World to go there. One of my favorites, the fusion rifle. I love the fusion rifle. This big backpack with the fucking atomic cells and a fucking rifle that shoots out fucking radiation out of it. It's basically a flamethrower that shoots it's like a World War II flamethrower that shoots radiation.
Gamma rays.
Gamma rays of radiation. Big, love that. That's like one of my all-time favorite was the fusion rifle. Because they just picture the guy with the backpack with the rifle with the tube going to it. It's like, boo, shooting out these big beams of radiation.
Do I remember it right that it had like a barrel like a pair of tuning forks? There was actually two beams that came out of it or something?
There were supposed to be two beams that come out of it. I don't know the particulars of how it came out, but it did do two beams. But yeah, fusion rifle, Gamma World, favorite of all time. Of course, things like you got your Mark 7 rifles, all the cool names, all these Flash Gordon ray guns. I kind of like from the Deathland series. It's a real world weapon. Doc Tanner uses the Lamat revolver.
Yep, percussion cap with a shotgun. Muzzle-loaded shotgun barrel.
Yeah. It wasn't a post-apocalyptic game, but as long as we're talking about first-person shooter games, as long as we're talking about video games, there were some post-apocalyptic-ish weapons in Redneck Rampage. I don't know if any of you guys ever played that. You never played Redneck Rampage? There was the gun that shot buzzsaw blades. That was a lot of fun. There was firing dynamite out of your crossbow. There was firing dynamite tied to a chicken out of your crossbow, so it would fly around a while and randomly land somewhere. So there was some good inspiration in that.
The dynamite thing immediately makes me think of Woody Strode in The Professionals, where he's got the stick of dynamite tied to the arrow, and as he starts to drop back, he's got a cigar and he lights the fucking fuse with the cigar, and then I'm sure that's not going to work. That stick of dynamite on a arrow is gonna fuck its trajectory and fuck its.
I'd want to try it a couple times with an unlit stick of dynamite just to see what happens.
Yeah,
or maybe something the size and weight of it that's not dynamite.
But just the fact that he lights it with a cigar, now I'm gonna fuck you up. I mean, that beats Rambo's exploding arrowheads all to hell as far as I'm concerned.
Now, y'all both know Will Thrasher, I think. He wrote up a fun series of post-apoc. Will Thrasher? You know Will Thrasher. You know Will. You know him, don't you, Scott?
I might have heard of him.
You know him, Jared. Haven't you had him on the show?
I believe we've mistaken you for him this episode.
Well,
Mike, we are fucking with you.
Anyway, he did a series of weapons at D-Infinity Online. The Infinity Online game magazine called Recycled Weapons. So they're a little whimsical. Like one is a baseball bat that has a wire wrapped around it and a battery attached to it, so it gives you a shock when you hit someone with it. Another is a Garrett made out of a bicycle chain, but it's sort of whimsical, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, post-apocalyptic weapons made from recycled junk. He's going to be doing a shield made out of plasma TVs that actually has a field of plasma on it that can protect the person using it. So more Gamma World type stuff, more Mutant Future type stuff.
I love the idea. Yeah, I love the idea of using an entertainment center as a weapon. That's just hilarious.
That's classic.
Weapons,
For Clint Staples, do we have any way to weaponize a bike?
No. Would you say?
No. No. Do we have a way of weaponizing a bicycle? For Clint
Weaponizing
Staples?
a bicycle? Well, like I said, Will Thrasher wrote up a Garrett made out of a bicycle chain.
That's a good start. That's a good start.
You could make little hand spikes out of the spokes. You could make good like brass knuckles with the pedals. Yeah. So I think it can be done.
There you go. See, Mike's thinking on his feet.
I got to, man.
Oh yeah. Well, it's not well, this movie's not post-apocalyptic, but you could say by the time they got into the second movie, they were going through post-apocalyptic landscapes. Phantasm 2. Fucking Reggie's improvised double barrel shotgun.
The quadruple barreled shotgun.
The double barrel shotgun. Classic.
And the best part about that was the way that he had the end of it cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this, so that there's this ridiculous spread.
Bam.
I have no idea if that really would make it awesome like that, but I don't care. It looked fucking great.
It is the street sweeper.
It's all about appearances. It doesn't matter how well it works. People might go, okay, we're not going to fuck with this guy. Look at that. Right. Look at that cool ass weapon.
Phase of this.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else, that really jumped out. That was a really fun or interesting post-apocalyptic weapon. And again, sadly, because I picked up Fallout again recently, I'm thinking of things like the rebar club. That's just a bunch of concrete stuck in rebar, that you're clubbing people with.
Hey, and I when I was young, I traipsed around with a chunk of rebar as like a walking stick. Didn't look like much at a glance, but it was a chunk of rebar. So yeah.
You don't want to get hit with that. You just don't want to get hit
with that or stabbed with it or whatever. Oh, going back to bikes.
Wait, Jared, your stick, zombie stick.
Oh, the zombie stick? Well,
have we mentioned it before?
We might have talked about. Okay.
We're in a weapon show. Talk about it. It's a stick.
Okay. All right. Now, this is what happens when Jared gets bored. Okay. So.
Don't let it happen.
Yeah, I call it the zombie stick. I took a fish bat. Okay. Well, when you go deep sea fishing, you have typically what's called a fish bat. It's just a short club, that they'll use when they pull these big fish on the boat. Smack them in the head to stop them from kicking around because they're big fucking fish. You want to stun them, so they hit them with these clubs. They're short clubs. They're like little baseball bats. They're like maybe this long. They're like maybe 2.5 feet long, like 36 inches maybe. These little fish bats. They make them out of wood and they make them out of aluminum. Now I'm like, well, those things are both pretty light, sturdy, but let's see if we can get some extra punch into the aluminum one. So what I did was I went to the bottom of it because it's hollow. I drilled a hole. I filled it with BBs from a BB gun. Filled the whole freaking thing up. Got some JB Weld type material. Put it back in the hole. Sealed at the bottom. Okay. And now this little bat, it must weigh 15 fucking pounds. It is heavy as shit. You need to have the little lanyard on it because it's going to come flying out of your hands. But let me tell you, all you have to do is connect with somebody with that, and they're going to be hurting for certain, okay? You hit them in the arm, I guarantee you'll fracture their arm because, this thing is heavy, but it's unwieldy. So you got to connect with that. Right. If you don't connect with that, you're going to get overthrown. Figure, like the Romans used to train with the wood swords as opposed to the heavier ones. way heavier than that. So unless you connect, you're in trouble because it's gonna overswing you and you're in trouble. But hey, you hit somebody with that, they're gonna go on the ground. The leg, the arm, you hit them in the skull, forget it, they're done.
Yeah,
but,
I just thought of something. Going back to what you were saying about zip guns, Jared. You know what would work pretty well, and people could improvise it with almost any kind of ammunition. A bang stick.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, basically just a big pole with a metal fitting at the end that you know, or a 45 caliber slug or whatever in, and then just have a set up with a nail. So when you jam it into something, it goes off. So perfect if you don't have a lot of ammo. If nobody has a lot of ammo, you're not going to be getting in a lot of gunfights. But you get into a hand-to-hand fight, and you just jab with that thing, and then suddenly you have a point-blank shotgun shell going off. So bang sticks, I think that would be something in the 5 to 10 year range out.
Oh, well, I used to think about that when I used to have my my townhome years ago, and we had hurricane shutters, or we used to call them zombie shutters. Now we're talking, this is mid 90s, okay? This is before the whole zombie craze. So figure, put the shutters on, lock the place up. Basically, if you have zombies, I was like, a bang stick would be a perfect weapon, because if they're all gathered out in the front, you just fucking open the second story window, you just fucking lean down, pop, pop, pop with the bang stick.
Yep.
Shoot them. Or, you know what, if you don't want to run low on ammo, you just put a fucking big spike on the end, just fucking hitting these zombies in the head from the second floor window to try to clear them out a little bit,
Whenever I watch Dawn of the Dead, either version, I always look out at that crowd of zombies. There's some point where they're shooting the zombies or whatever, and I keep thinking, that's ammo. What are you doing wasting all that ammo? And I think what you need is one of those old 1980s vintage wrist rockets loaded up with ball bearings.
I've got one.
Yeah.
I've got one.
That seems like a great thing. Well, there's nothing to do on a Saturday morning outside our zombie-surrounded mall. I think I'll go out on the roof with the wrist rocket and a bunch of ball bearings, which is quiet, and then just see if I can start fracturing some zombie skulls.
One of the kids on Z Nation uses that.
Yep. 10K.
Oh, yeah.
He uses a freaking big ass fucking slingshot.
Yeah, he's using a wrist rocket. That's exactly right. Yeah, good. You're exactly right, Scott.
Hell, spent batteries. Anything in there. There's all kinds of nasty you can put in something like that, and it's pretty good. I remember being pretty surprised as a kid when I blew a hole in my parents' back porch screen, where it just went poo right through the screen. Didn't expect that.
Speaking of the 80s and things you could order out of the back of Soldier of Fortune magazine, I never thought these were very impressive until I saw a friend of mine get one and use it. Blowguns.
Interesting.
The darts were just a plastic bead, and you would heat up a piece of heavy gauge steel, almost just a little bit more than wire, and stick it into the bead. The dart didn't look like anything at all, but you could blow one of those through like a 1/4 inch of plywood. So really, really, really pretty deadly. And you never see those being used, but those were big in the 80s. You could get like these
I guess they were like people hunting. I'd love to see people hunting with that stuff post-apocalyptically. You save the bullets for a fight with people, but when you're out there looking to get dinner, I just remember there was a movie at Zompire called The Sound of Nothing, which was, again, 15 years after the Apocalypse film. And I just remember the main character's out there with this bolt-action rifle hunting, and it's a bolt-action, Mauser 98, and he's shooting at rabbits. And I'm thinking,
idiot.
That rabbit's going to explode into a mist. There's just going to be rabbit puree. What are you talking about? Where's your 22? Where's your varmint rifle?
Your pellet gun. Did you forget the pellet gun?
Something you can use air with a hand pump.
Exactly.
Air weapons.
That'll take down a rabbit.
And then last weapon I'm going to talk about, then we're going to wrap this up, is if we're going to blow guns and stuff, let's talk about what's something really easy that all you need is like a little patch of leather or cloth and some kind of string. You make a sling. Now, mind you, it takes some fucking skill to use those damn things, but if you can master that, that could be a pretty deadly weapon. Again, use batteries, put that on there, swing it, hit somebody in the head. You could hurt somebody with that, You see them being used in the Middle East right up to this day.
You see these Palestinian kids using this sling, and they're using the same model of sling that their forebears were using 10,000 years ago.
To knock down Goliath.
Yeah. So yeah, slings are easy. Slings are easy to make. I remember reading in an episode in a issue of American Survival Guide that I used to read back in the 80s. They talked about slings. Like, yeah, just get a little piece of this cloth and this of leather and string. There, you got yourself an improvised weapon, a sling.
Yep.
Or even, you know what? If we're gonna go that far, let's make what is it? What is the weapon that basically is a little piece of?
Oh, the atlatl.
Atlatl, yeah. So yeah, we're gonna throw fucking spears of the stick. So anyway,
I love the atlatls that turned up in Quest for Fire. It's like they came back from their fire quest with ray guns compared to the technology of the other cavemen. Yeah, that got everybody's attention.
So,
yep.
Anyway, folks. So that's our discussion on weapons in the apocalypse. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that people are cringing, like, you didn't talk about this or that, or we talked too much about one thing. But hey, that's how this show rolls. So
yeah, talk about it on your own show. Start your own show and you talk about it.
That's right.
But again, this is a topic that we could easily do another 5 shows on. Weapons and armor in the apocalypse. But again, we wanted to. I think we covered a lot of the main points on all that. So
throwing out some provocative ideas. If in the apocalypse people use just one idea that we presented today, it could save their lives. It would have been worth it to watch the show if they get one idea that they can use.
Great. So we're like the Wasteland Survival Guide. I feel so.
Well, I think we are.
Yeah. Well, we'd like to hope so. So that's going to be it for Sticks and Stones, folks, episode 33. Next episode in 2 weeks is going to be Halloween week. So we're going to go with a classic horror film, which is also an apocalyptic film. We are going to talk about Dawn of the Dead.
And all its permutations.
So we're going to talk about Dawn of the Dead, the original classic 1978 George Romero, as well as the 2005 remake, which a lot of people thought was blasphemy, but you know what? I take the name away, I still thought it was a pretty darn good movie. So we're going to be talking about Dawn of the Dead for the week of Halloween. So,
and you have Tom Savini as a guest. Did I hear that through the grapevine? Is that true?
No.
We can only hope. So
if he stops by, he stops by.
We'll bring him on.
Not like we can stop him.
Yeah, we'll bring him on when we talk about Night of the Living Dead in his 1990 remake.
Right, All of the Dead, or whatever the hell it was.
So that's what we're going to talk about 2 weeks, folks. We're going to talk about Dawn of the Dead on episode 34. So, any last words from our guest Mike or Scott?
Nope.
I would just tell people check out D-Infinity Online Game Magazine. It's d-infinity.net because we've got a ton of post-apocalyptic material up there, weapons and otherwise. And we actually have post-apocalyptic material, game material, going up on that site every single week. So people should check that out if they want free stuff, free game content for their post-apocalyptic games.
Cool. Thank you, Mike. So we're going to call it a wrap. So
yes,
we'll see you in 2 weeks, folks. This is the Apocalypse Nerd. This is Mike Verhola and Annabomb Glancy from Podcast at Ground Zero saying thank you. We'll see you in the Wastelands, and good night.